Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 on Wednesday morning here in the nation's capital. It's 6:55. Cal Thomas will be here. 7:05. Eddie Garcia running for Senate in Virginia. 8:05. Peter Schweitzer's got a new book. They're always full of facts and information that can't be refuted. This one called Blood Money, about China and, well, what they're doing with it here in America. 8:35. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, to analyze yesterday's Michigan primary and the path forward for this presidential election. That's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor. And that's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
I was waiting for a little musical. You know, we have a podcast.
I know.
If anybody, I always say who's coming up and who we already talked to, and I refer to it, and I worry because we hear all 4 hours.
Right.
Do you hear all 4 hours, Julie?
I do, Larry.
All right. Well, sometimes you're shopping over there.
I'm not shopping. I mean, maybe a little.
But not everybody hears all 4 hours. Apparently, our podcast is gets a lot of downloads. People should listen to the podcast. So I listened to the podcast yesterday for the first time in quite some time. You know, the way we present our podcast, we don't always include our music that we play on the show for various licensing reasons and stuff that just, you know, you don't want to get into it. It's arcane. So we hear the show basically on the podcast. Oftentimes you're hearing it, what they say in the business, dry, without any music. And the music is a vibe for our show,
yeah, it is.
Right? It like sort of adds to it. So I always think the most pristine, purest listening experience is live on terrestrial radio, 105.9 FM WMAL. But if you can't hear that, you want to listen on the podcast, right? Yeah. So it reminds me that I shouldn't draw too much attention to the music, like I'm doing right now.
Okay, where are we going with this?
Because people listening on the podcast right now are thinking, oh, there's music?
Ah, yes.
Right. And so maybe should we start this over?
We should.
All right. It's too late.
Yeah. You're a little bit distracted this morning.
Anyway, thanks for listening today. I am a little
You're
squirrel.
a little all over the place.
Yeah, one of those things. All right. So the FBI is using their social media accounts when they're not lying about Donald Trump and conservatives and going after Catholics who, you know, appreciate a Latin mass, or parents who complain at school board meetings, that sort of thing.
Politely complain.
They use their, very politely, until they get pushed.
Yeah.
They use their social media accounts to sort of raise awareness about crime in America, right? And shoplifting is on the rise, big time.
Yep.
We've seen the videos. You've seen the videos where people just go into stores, clear out the shelves.
They bring in hefty garbage bags.
Big ones.
Yep, and they just sweep the shelves.
And instead of using
and
those...
that's why CVS locks things up now.
That's right, or close down, shut down their stores.
Right.
Not just CVS, pretty much all the basic drugstores, but also retail stores. You see it in major city complexes right now where a car will drive up out in front of a Louis Vuitton shop.
Yes.
And a flood of like 12 people in a van, SUV, will come in. And other people who are waiting on the sidewalk will all flood into the store at the same time.
It's called, what are they called? There's something.
It's like a.
What are those things where people dance in the
street?
a
mob.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But it's like a flash mob.
Flash mob.
But it's a flash mob shoplifting. And they all go in and they strip the shelves bare and they leave.
They're in and out in 10 seconds.
We've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
And now maybe it's because of the security cameras involved there, because they're not always the highest quality. But based on this FBI tweet that was sent out here, where they say higher prices, dangerous products, and closing businesses, these are just some of the impacts organized retail theft has on everyday Americans. I'm glad the FBI is probably, taking some charge here, right? And actually alerting everybody.
I mean, since local prosecutors aren't doing anything, maybe the FBI will.
Would you be surprised to learn that those flash mobs that you've seen on the security cameras and all these other things that the FBI is now warning everyone about is all basically young, attractive teenage girls?
I had no idea sororities were engaged in this.
I mean, who knew? They got to get better quality cameras for these security systems, because the picture that accompanied this tweet is like an 18-year-old.
It's like Kappa Gamma.
Yes. And they're in a store. They're sort of looking over their shoulders, right? It's a stock. Somebody traced it out and found that this is a stock photo.
Yeah.
That the FBI just used and bought. And you can't tell me this isn't deliberate.
Oh, completely.
This is DEI affecting
Yeah.
the criminal justice system.
The real problem is Brittany and Ashley.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. Brittany and Ashley are known to shoplift.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That one thing about shoplifting
but, I mean,
is
the flash mobs are
exactly.
and these,
when you're using the words organized retail theft, that's not some chick who can't afford the scarf and decides to stick it in her purse on a dare.
right.
Okay,
Right.
we're talking about something very different and very specific here. But the FBI, they got destroyed on social media for
they
this,
did.
by the way. Thank
They
God.
also used pictures of like a man my dad's age, okay? Like,
Yes,
putting something. He's like,
No, he's in the vegetable
it's like
section.
He looks like
He's in the-
grandpa.
Yes,
He's
and he's
in
putting
the
a
vegetable.
kumquat in his breast pocket.
And he literally behind him are tomatoes
Yes.
and cabbages and rutabagas and broccoli. And he's sticking something in his coat pocket.
Somebody Googled an image search of shoplifting stock images. And it's all of these actors who are, and it's always a dude, so there's always get a 25-year-old sort of,
Well, they're absolutely, without question, they are all white.
They're all
which
white.
is hilarious.
100%
And then,
all white.
yeah, it's like they're scared
No.
to assign any kind of race besides white
To be clear,
to these crimes.
traditional shoplifting like this does cut across all
Sure.
racial demographics. And sadly, the FBI keeps statistics on stolen goods in general, but doesn't break down shoplifting. Shoplifting is a very specific thing. Sometimes like people with means, rich people shoplift.
Oh, Winona Ryder, don't forget.
That's right.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
So there's sort of a psychological thing about shoplifting, too, that goes well beyond just
It's a thrill. It's a, not that I know.
something you want to tell
I'm
us.
going straight to the mall after this. But there is an adrenaline rush, a thrill from it of getting away with something, which is, I think, when the Winona Ryder case.
Because of that aspect of it, shoplifting, unlike other crimes and theft and such, it does sort of cut across all racial lines and demographics. In fact, to prove to you that I actually do research for this show, if you had to, there was a specific study done out of the University of Florida in the early 2000s that wanted to look at this, and then the reason was that they felt that blacks and Latinos were being unfairly targeted by shopkeepers, that they were being followed and cased.
What are you doing here? Well, yeah.
So, and because the FBI does not break down the statistics for shoplifting in particular, this University of Florida study meant to do that. So they did identify in that study one racial and gender demographic that did stick out overwhelmingly as the most likely to be a shoplifter. Can you guess?
White women in their 50s?
Seriously, is there something you want to tell us?
No.
Latino women. Latinas.
Interesting.
AOC. AOC. If anyone
totally
in Congress, is a suspected
Yeah.
shoplifter, it's AOC.
Yeah. When she's building that table, she actually,
Young Latino women
Interesting.
stand out as a, but that's one demographic you won't see anywhere in these stock photos that the FBI used to warn everyone about organized theft. And
they're so nervous to offend, especially the Democrats, that the FBI is using these ridiculous photos of like grandpa and sorority girls. Yeah.
And we're laughing at them, and they were roundly mocked, and they were and they deserve to be mocked. They deserve to be laughed at for what it is. But pause for a moment and recognize something. This actually is a very serious issue.
Sure.
The FBI should be engaged in this, and they should treat law enforcement and criminal activity seriously because they're the freaking BI.
Well, just a few,
and instead they don't.
Just
they
a
do
few
this.
years ago, food deserts were so important that Michelle Obama made it one of her pet projects.
Mm-hmm.
And the narrative there was, these retailers are racist. They will not place stores in areas, urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
And this should also be a serious that we take seriously that some of these shops in urban areas are closing because of the crime, which leaves the nice people who need a CVS, need to get their medicines, need to get some basic food items. They have nowhere to go.
No,
they have to get on a cross.
I'm so sorry,
bus.
but I'm sorry. I have to correct you on there. We can't let misinformation get out here, Julie. The reason that CVS's and grocery stores and other retail stores have been closing down in the inner cities and predominantly black and minority neighborhoods is because of young white teenage girls.
That's right.
The FBI told me so.
Yes.
It's 6:15, WMAL traffic and weather.
Mark Levin, weeknights from 6 till 9.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
You know there's something going on with your career when it appears the smartest move you ever made was to become so insufferable that your company had to fire you. But that's the story of Don Lemon, because Don Lemon is getting a $25 million payday for being fired.
I would be so good at that. What can I do?
Yeah, the language in his contract was adjudicated here, or they were going through a lawsuit after they fired him, and it turns out that the settlement that was reached amounts to $24.5 million, which would have been the balance of his contract had it played out to the end of its term, were he not subsequently prematurely fired. $24.5 million. I'm sorry, I'm sort of stumbling here because I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head. It means he was getting paid close to $8 million a year, to host a morning show.
This is just...
He was getting paid close to $8 million a year to host a morning show that nobody watched.
Well, that's true. I know. Let's move on from our bitterness. But this is another example of there's never any costs. I know. I know you're going to say it again.
$8 million a year.
But think of how Don Lemon...
Heather Cohen on the phone, please? It's my agent, Heather Cohen, because we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, you do.
Sorry.
And talk about me too.
Getting a little distracted.
No, but I do think that this is another example, which for normal Americans, average Americans, so frustrating that there's never any costs to culturally harming the nation, lying, and contributing to sort of the cultural rot. It is frustrating that after this you get fired. Finally, you get fired. There's some accountability, and then you get $25 million for screwing up.
Yeah,
it is frustrating.
Well, for screwing up and for having bad ratings.
Yeah. I mean,
for alienating your employees, your coworkers, right?
Right.
It goes on and on and on. And I mean, the kinds of things that Don Lemon is associated with.
Yeah, he had to make up too many lies to why he didn't want to do certain things, or like to cover.
That's talking about Jussie Smollett,
right? His
best friend, who he got and then let's not forget,
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry, when a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking?
There you go. What are you talking about? Don Lemon's greatest hits, man. I mean, you can go on and on with him.
And let's not forget, if anyone is judging this, I'm not judging this. I'm just wondering what is going on, because we were supposed to figure out this experiment a long time ago.
This is his commentary on the riots following George Floyd.
Don't forget,
that's some insightful
Don
stuff. Don
Lemon was actually a reasonable voice for a long time in the early aughts. He made that.
When he told black people that they shouldn't
pull their pants up,
and get married,
and the thing is that CNN continually rewarded him for becoming more and more radical until he became too radical. But
I'm trying to tell this story. I'm trying to not be bitter. But it's hard not to be. But yeah, he sued CNN. CNN said it's not working out. You're alienating all your employees. There's stories of your misogyny. You're abrasive. You're a jerk. So he's gone. They fire him, and he sued, and he got $24.5 million. Meghan McCain actually pointed out maybe CNN is dying because they're giving enough money to buy an island to someone whose ratings fall well below the most average influencer Instagram reels. But Don Lemon was not hired because he was going to bring in an audience, and he was not hired because of ratings. He wasn't hired because he's advertiser friendly. He was hired because it made the executives feel good about hiring him.
Pushing a narrative, he was willing to push a political narrative. He was willing to trade in being a good journalist to push the narrative that CNN wanted him to push.
And there's really good money in it.
Yes, there is.
Really good money. 623.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36 this Wednesday morning. It's the 28th day of February. We're on the cusp of a leap year. Leap years are always kind of exciting. It feels like you get this bonus day. Don't waste it. On this February 28th, we're excited to bring you at 7:05 Eddie Garcia, who's running for Senate in Virginia. 8:05, Peter Schweitzer, one of the best-informed, well-researched journalists out there. He's got a brand new book called Blood Money, all about China and, well, the Biden family. At 8:35, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, going to give us some cold hard analysis of the Michigan primary yesterday and the way forward in this presidential election. That's coming up. Larry O'Connor here, Julie Gunlock there.
Good morning.
And it's Wednesday at 6:35. That means it's Cal Thomas time, and maybe he won't give us some cold hard analysis of the Michigan primary yesterday and the presidential election. Maybe he'll give us some red meat, hot blooded analysis. I'll start this way, Cal. What is Nikki Haley doing here? What? I don't quite understand what she's accomplishing.
We're going to get to that in just a second, but since you mentioned leap year tomorrow, tomorrow is another significant day, and Larry, you may be old enough to remember Al Capp's Little Abner Strip and Sadie Hawkins Day. Sadie Hawkins Day means that women can propose marriage to men, a very, very significant day. Now, Julie, you probably will have to do a Google search for that because you appear to be such a young woman.
Wow.
I don't know what your marital status is or not, but I just want you to know that you have complete freedom if you want to ask a man for a date or to propose marriage on Sadie Hawkins Day.
Well, I'm married, but I might take advantage of it.
Why not?
Yeah.
Anything goes. I think it's a little presumptuous for you to actually define men and women here, Cal, but I don't even want to go there.
I know. Well, I always liked Daisy May in those nice shorts. That was very cute.
I'll be honest. So just full disclosure, I do know about Sadie Hawkins only because in high school we had a Sadie Hawkins dance where the girls could ask the guys out.
Yes.
And, of course, you know, Lil Abner was converted into a Broadway musical, Cal, and that's
true.
That's where my real point of reference is.
All right. Now to things far less significant. No question, Donald Trump blew away Nikki Haley last night, 68% to 26%, the widest victory he's had in the primaries. Biden did less well. He only got about 87%. I say only because those uncommitted, those Arab Americans, Muslim voters, there was a campaign to protest America's support for Israel in the war in Gaza, and nearly 100,000 checked the box uncommitted. Now, the question is always, and has always been in these elections, where there are more than two candidates, will they come home on Election Day in November? That's the big question.
Yeah.
Will the Muslim voters not vote, or will they vote for a third party, or stay home? And the same with the Trump voters. The thing that really surprises me is that the polls overwhelmingly show that a major majority of Americans don't want either Trump or Biden, and yet they're voting for them in these primaries, and it looks like that's what they're going to get in the fall.
Cal, real fast, just for context, that undecided number, I think 13.5%, 14%, it was over 100,000 votes against Joe Biden in the Democrat primary. He won Michigan in 2020 over Donald Trump by 150,000 votes.
Right. Now, the latest Fox poll shows him trailing Trump by 2 points. If he can't win Michigan, he's not going to win re-election, assuming that he is the candidate. And everything is really in flux. I mean, as we've talked before, this is the most unusual election perhaps since John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. I've never seen anything like this. I don't think anybody else has, and anybody who makes a prediction or wants to put money on it is really taking a major chance, because we don't know how these trials are going to turn out. Polls have shown that if Trump is convicted of a felony, some people will be less likely to vote for him. You've got the border situation where both of them are going down to the border tomorrow. This political theater business. I mean, Biden could have shut the border. He could have kept it shut when he came into office. So claiming he didn't have the power is a joke, and it's become the number one issue. This is amazing. Usually the economy is the number one issue, but the polls now show immigration is by far the number one issue, and people want something done about it.
Well, the number one issue for the Biden administration appears to be Ukraine, along with Mitch McConnell. But that 100,000, going back to Michigan, that 100,000 voters who were undecided, do you think we're going to see the Biden administration turn on on Israel even more. We know that they just announced this demand that by mid-March, Israel has to provide a letter saying that, they'll abide by humanitarian laws if they don't already. But are we going to see more of these, or I should say less support for Israel because of these 100,000 votes?
Julie, this is so amazing. It's so one-sided. Nobody's asking Hamas to abide by humanitarian laws. I mean, they kill babies. They kidnap and rape women. They do all kinds of other horrible, horrible things. It's only Israel that's being asked to do these things. And when you have, let's say you have a poker game where one side is playing by the rules and the other's got an ace up his sleeve and cheating, it doesn't take a brilliant individual to figure out who's going to win the game. And that's the way it's been through several administrations. The pressure is always on Israel. The terrorists hide out women and children in hospitals, in schools, hoping that as Israel comes in to try to take them out, there'll be some collateral damage, and they can rush the pictures before CNN and BBC and condemn Israel. It's the same old show all the time, and Israel's fighting for its life. The terrorists are fighting to eliminate Israel and the Jewish people.
Cal, we keep hearing the drumbeat here in D.C. about a looming government shutdown. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, had a meeting with the other congressional leaders and the president yesterday, and apparently everything was cleared off the table except a discussion of Ukraine funding. That's all they discussed. They wouldn't let Mike Johnson talk about anything else.
Well, I'm for a government shutdown. I think we ought to start all over again, back with what the founders had in mind. I always love the announcements on WMAL when there's a big snowstorm. Only essential workers need show up for work. Good. Let's find out who they are and get rid of the rest of them.
Thank you, Cal.
All right, guys.
6:43. I had a conversation with my 19-year-old yesterday. And again, I always feel like things that are going on in my life are pretty much similar to what's going on in most of the people's lives who are listening. I'm just a regular guy, honestly. Too regular, in fact. And so this conversation, I'm guessing, has occurred in many of the households of those great WMAL listeners who are right now with us. My 19, I talk about my daughters a lot, right? Of course, my second oldest daughter, who's in the United States Navy, this Friday she graduates from nuclear power school.
Wow.
Which is the next step to getting on her submarine. This is very exciting for her. And of course, I have no idea, she's brilliant. She's a genius, right? And so we don't talk about the nuclear engineering part of what she's going to be doing or any of that stuff. We talk about the military and the engagement in the Navy and things like that. And I can roll with her. My oldest daughter, also brilliant. She has a career in theater.
Which is perfect.
Believe it or not.
I talked to her all day.
She called me for career advice yesterday. We had a 2-hour conversation about her career advice.
Yeah.
My 19-year-old, freshman in college, texts me yesterday. He says, Dad, I have a dilemma. I need your help.
You read me this text. This is complicated.
He says, so he's getting a math computer science degree.
Smart.
And then he says, but I want a minor, maybe double major in what is cognitive science?
Yeah.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Cognitive science, although he's also thinking of a minor in physics.
Oof.
As well. And he says, because I can apply all this to, and I said, what?
I feel dumb already.
Exactly. And I'm like, dude, I'll try to roll with you here, but honestly, I'm
this
already kind of
This is me talking to my
lost.
son about sports.
It's almost. and my daughters, the two older ones, and obviously, I mean, oldest one went to UCLA, not an easy school to get into. And she actually even though she went theater, she got accepted in the biology school.
Oh, wow.
And then switched to theater, which I was so proud.
Yeah.
She went from curing cancer to, being on the road with the bus and truck of
Entertainment is important, Larry.
Yes, very important. And then, of course, Veronica goes to the Naval Academy and finishes, top 10, all that stuff. So, and the girls will say that Christian, my son that I'm talking about here, is smarter than them. He really is, like,
he's
insanely
such a well-rounded
smart
kid, though, because he's also he's
He is a big volleyball player and
Yeah.
big gamer and all that. So I said, dude, I'm already lost in this conversation, but go ahead. My biggest question for you is, how are you going to apply this in the real world?
This is when you fake it as parents.
Well, and that's what I did for the most part. And when I said, how do you apply that? And he's sort of like, it was like one of those AI.
Yeah.
Duh. It's like as if anybody would know that physics and cognitive science and math CS, computer science, is obviously an AI career path.
This is why we have guests.
Yeah, thank you. So I am sort of faking my way through the conversation and just really talking about work-life balance and this class load and how he can get all these classes done and all that stuff. But it really did scratch the surface for me about where artificial intelligence is going. Right? Because we look at artificial intelligence and what we know about it, like the Google Gemini thing, where if you ask them, show me George Washington, and it's a black woman, from the national tour of Hamilton, right? Or something like that. But we see it, or the common use of AI right now seems to be for entertainment or for media or for,
cutting corners.
And cheating. Right, exactly. Cheating. For like writing an article or taking a test or writing an essay. And I said, so how are you going to apply this? And I'm like holding my breath because I'm afraid because he is a huge gamer. He loves video games. And I was afraid he was going to say that he wanted to apply AI to gaming industry and get it, which is, he'll still get the big Malibu beach house that we'll all live in eventually.
Yeah, I can't wait.
No, yeah, literally all of us, everyone.
Yes.
And we won't see each other because it'll be that big. And he said, I'm thinking about for healthcare.
Growing industry.
Well, I started to research this because I want to be able to have something to say in the next conversation. The use of artificial intelligence in health applications, surgeries, figuring out what's wrong with us, curing things, it's remarkable and terrifying at the same time. But this is really an incredible, and I bet there's guys, if you're out there and you know about this stuff and you're actually in this field, I know AI is being used in our defense industry in a big way. Reach out to me on social media and just say, hey, maybe I can send you some information about this, because we are on the cusp of something. I have a feeling, how you look back at the mid-'80s or mid-'90s and we thought we had it all together because we had a fax machine.
Yeah.
And now we have a supercomputer in our pocket, at all times. And it's like, God, how did we grow so quickly in such a short amount of time? I have a feeling that like 5 years from now, because of artificial intelligence, we're going to be saying...
I haven't quite started having these conversations with my kids, but tonight over dinner, we're going to be talking about AI in healthcare.
There you go. See?
It's a growing field. But no, one thing I will say, just sort of like a little bit off topic of the sort of AI in healthcare and sort of the details of that. It is so nice to have children who are moving forward with their life, creating and building their own life, and have their own ideas about things. I think we hear so many negative things about kids today. We hear about learning loss. We hear about mental health problems. We hear about this is actually nice to hear about your kids and what a great sort of path they're on.
It is sort of harrowing, though, when you learn that you can't keep up with your child.
Oh,
because I vividly remember potty training him. And now he's like, listen to this. I just learned I can take up to 2 minors. This is a text from him last night. My only worry is if having math computer science major with minors in physics and cognitive science would have the reverse effect of me seeming less specialized. And being specialized is very important in the computer science and AI industry to help stand out. But it would also give me a good backbone and show that I have a well-rounded education. And I'm reading that saying, are you sure you don't want to get into Broadway musicals? Because there I can help you. 6:53.